Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video I wanted to talk about the Synastry aspects, Venus, Trine, or Sextile to Uranus, and yeah, these are really fun aspects to have. There's not a lot that I could say negatively about these aspects, except that they still do have that Uranian energy, especially when they're in a very close orb. Where what I mean by that is the Uranus person can still seem like they are unstable or non-committed in some cases, and with other Saturn aspects or with other really good synastry, it's not always going to be that way, but there's always an element of surprise usually coming from the Uranus person, and there's a lot of excitement in both people. So the Venus person sees the Uranus person as like this rebel, or like this person who just does not give a F, right? And they could also see them as like this sort of genius or radical, or like there's something very different but attractive about the Uranus person to the Venus person. And if this aspect is very close in orb, it can be quite exhilarating and very like removing the barriers of communication or of flirtation. Like the Venus person can really want to reach out to the Uranus person and be like, hey, I'm noticing you, I'm seeing you. But it's usually in a very friendly way, unless we have other more intense aspects going on here. These aspects can be really great for just friendship, and that's actually usually how the relationship will start, is just the Venus person feeling especially overly friendly to the Uranus person, and feeling like this Uranus person is something different, someone different, that they've never interacted with anybody like this before, and they want to know them, they want to give to them. Venus can show giving and receiving, right? Thumbs up. And so the Venus person can feel especially generous to the Uranus person, and then what ends up happening is that the Uranus person is going to like this type of energy and attention to the Venus person. They're going to see the Venus person as very beautiful and also very accepting of them. That's the main thing that the Uranus person feels in this connection, is accepted. And like they can be themselves, and even if the Venus person is coming from a very different background, which they often are, the Uranus person still feels like their quirks or their eccentricities or uniqueness is seen and not a threat to the Venus person. So the Uranus person can feel very open in expressing, and the Uranus person can feel open in expressing like if they're unavailable to the Venus person, or if they're not interested in a relationship. This doesn't always equal a romantic or sexual relationship, and the Uranus person can usually feel quite free to say like, hey, I like the attention, but like this isn't happening. Or if the right contacts are there and it's the right timing for both people, then they can say, hey, actually I am into this. And they feel quite open to sharing what they actually are feeling and their real impulses with the Venus person. So it's not a contact where there's a lot of restriction, unless we have Saturn aspects also going on, which often you do, right? Often you're not just having one aspect alone in isolation, right? But just this aspect alone, isolated, usually there's a lot of warmth and there's a lot of like naturalness in expression. Another aspect of it is that you could see similar interests in like Venusian energies. Like, you could have similar tastes or similar interests in like music or art, or and even if you don't have Venuses in the same like element or sign or energy, you could still see with this aspect or these aspects that there is still harmony and compatibility on the Venus level. There's still like shared enjoyment in these kind of like pleasure oriented things, right? And So it does indicate compatibility. It is one of these aspects that can really build over time. Like the attraction does not fade because we are actually attracted to real qualities in each other with the trine of the sextile. Like there is a harmony here. We are similar in these energies, and even though it still has the flair of a Venus Uranus aspect, so you have to think about the conjunction of Venus Uranus and how that'll manifest, and then this is just kind of like that in a lesser, more harmonious way, but we're still going to have that energy of that this could begin suddenly. It could end suddenly, but there's less hurt feelings with these harmonious aspect if it does begin and end suddenly. There's still a feeling of exhilaration and like, wow, that was something really worthwhile for me to be involved in because of the awakening that occurred. So you're still going to maybe potentially have some of this like love at first sight energy happening with this aspect, although it's not as strong if there aren't other more intense aspects. This one could be the person who, they're just kind of near you and you don't always notice them, but you feel really comfortable with them and you feel really comfortable talking to them perhaps about the other love interest that you have, until one day you wake up and realize, oh, this person who's been sitting there right beside me, this friend zone person, this really easy, natural, fun companion, wait, maybe this is something more. And then the relationship, that if it happens from that point, then it's something that's even more shocking to you, because it's like, I never would have thought of it like that. Because that's kind of the energy of the trine or the sextile, is that you don't always notice right away the level of attraction and compatibility. It's not as strong as the conjunction, square, or opposition that, you're racing across the road to go and talk to this beautiful person. With the trine of the sextile, it's more natural. It's more like we're friends. It's more like we're actually compatible. So it's not all this crazy stuff right from the start. Although it can be. It just depends on other things. But this one is one that can surprise you because of the actual compatibility here. So it might not always be love at first sight. It definitely could with other aspects, but it's more common that it's something that kind of builds and then it's like, well, where did that come from, right? And it's definitely one of these aspects that will keep the relationship exciting long term. This is like a really good amount of attraction, and it is physical attraction. It is sensual. It is, the Uranus person is especially attractive, and even in their weirdness is very pleasing to the Venus person. And then the Uranus person sees the Venus person as kind of like this little buddy of theirs that, doesn't seem to ever see too much wrong with them. Kind of like I don't know, not a sidekick, but like they're not a threat. They're and they can definitely see the eyes on them and think, I kind of like this attention. And in a non-toxic way, and just a very easy way. So they both feel quite good in each other's presence. And the Venus person can actually become more open because of this relationship. Like they can become more open to whatever energy the Uranus person is holding. It's like it can break up blockages in the Venus person's heart. Like let's say they've been hurt a lot or they've gone through heartbreak or whatever. The Uranus person's energy is kind of like stimulating that and healing it, but in a gentle way, not in such a shocking way like the other Venus-Uranus aspects. But yeah, so it can be a very healing experience. And then that can also happen in the reversal too. Like with the Uranus person, they can definitely be healed when they're in the presence of someone who is just so kind to them and so giving to them and sees them in such a nice light, right? They can really, it's like a sigh of relief, right? It's like, oh, I'm seen, I'm loved for all that I am and who I am. So it's really beautiful. The sextile is maybe a bit more active even. Like there's a more social aspect, more kind of friendliness, more even maybe like friend zone aspect where, just constant like banter and flirting back and forth and very, very fun. And then the trine is a lot more inborn and natural. Like, we might not even notice it. It just flows with such ease, but it does show real durable compatibility. And it's one of these aspects that can act as sort of like a saving grace aspect, especially for people who do require some form of like Uranus energy in a relationship. But like, this is a real nice amount of Uranus energy where it's like it can be stable for the long term. Venus Uranus aspects show more excitement and more like your world changes, your values change. Sometimes even your taste will change. The way that you love can change, but the way that it changes with these aspects is like in a way that is beneficial to you. And there usually isn't hard feelings. Like I said, this is a friendship aspect first, and you can remain friends if you have the right natal placements to allow that. You can remain friends even after a relationship, or it is very commonly seen in friends because you enjoy each other and you feel like you're really getting something valuable out of this relationship, out of this connection. It can be very beneficial for financial gain as well, and in unexpected ways. So working together, working on some sort of creative project, and then all of a sudden you come into like a bunch of money and you weren't expecting it. That's kind of the energy of these aspects as well. The trine is more powerful. Like I said, the sextile is more flirtatious and social, although they both are. These are very flirty aspects. These are aspects where you're flirting even when it's a friendship, or, it's just very easy to open your heart and share with them what you like about them and complimenting them, and really, really good aspects. The only downside, still, if you're not comfortable with that Uranus energy that can feel unstable, or if the Venus person is of a more judging nature, they could still kind of think that the Uranus person is a bit erratic or kind of like, impossible to tame. There's still a little bit of that vibe going on, but in these aspects, it's more likely that the Uranus person is actually really compatible with the Venus person as far as that energy goes. And you can look at the signs or the elements that these aspects are taking place in, and that's a real natural gift of the relationship, of the whole synastry, is that elemental energy, that flow of energy is really, one of the gifts of the relationship. So yeah, super fun one. I'd love to know what your experience of this aspect or these aspects has been. Was it fun for you? Did you like it? Did it end up in a long-term relationship? I'd love to hear your thoughts, you guys, and thank you so much for requesting this, and we'll talk soon. Bye.